At 57, Jamie Foxx, one of Hollywood's brightest stars, faces a personal tragedy that has left fans in shock and disbelief. Known for his incredible talent and larger-than-life personality, Jamie's life has taken an unimaginable turn. Behind the glitz and glamour, a deeply painful reality has emerged, forcing the world to confront a side of him rarely seen. What is this devastating news, and how is it affecting him and those around him? The details are heartbreaking and will leave you speechless. Jamie Foxx's story begins in a small, quiet town called Terrell, Texas, where his life was shaped by both hardship and hope. Born Eric Marlon Bishop on December 13, 1967, Jamie's early years were marked by a profound absence. His parents, his father Darrell Bishop and his mother Louise Annette Talley, were not part of his life in any meaningful way. His father drifted away, later converting to Islam and disappearing completely from Jamie's world. His mother was there in name, but her presence was mostly absent, leaving Jamie alone in a home without the warmth of parental love. At just 7 months old, Jamie was sent to live with his grandmother, Estelle Marie Talley, who would become the anchor in his life. Estelle was a woman of strict faith and unyielding discipline. She was a nursery school teacher, and the values she held were firm and clear. Discipline and faith were the foundation of her home, and they would shape Jamie's life forever. He often recalled how Estelle's rules were tough but fair, pushing him to be his best, whether it was at the piano or in life. Although Jamie's childhood was far from easy, his grandmother gave him 2 gifts that would change his life forever: music and structure. Estelle made sure Jamie was fed and educated, though they lived modestly and there was no wealth to speak of. The piano became Jamie's first love. While other kids played outside or took part in sports, Jamie would sit at the piano for hours, learning the music of Beethoven and Bach. It wasn't a hobby, it was a lifeline. The music was both a comfort and an escape from the painful silence left by his absent parents. The piano keys, though, were not just a place of refuge. They were also a prison of sorts. The discipline required to master them was tough, and Jamie often felt isolated, spending long hours at the bench while other kids were out living the carefree lives of children. Yet these hours of practice set the foundation for something extraordinary. Though he lacked the love and affection most children took for granted, Jamie had something even more powerful: resilience. Growing up, Jamie learned to mask the loneliness he often felt. He began using humor as a shield, cracking jokes to make people laugh and hide the emptiness inside. "I told jokes so people wouldn't see the loneliness," he later confessed. Laughter became his armor, protecting him from the world's gaze and from his own heartache. But it wasn't just humor that would define Jamie Foxx. It was the relentless drive to prove that he was more than the boy left behind. Through his early life, Jamie learned how to make the best of what he had. His pain in the absence of his parents didn't break him. Instead, it fueled him to strive for more. The strict discipline from his grandmother, the church's gospel music, and the sharp focus on his piano lessons helped shape a boy into a man who would one day capture the world's attention. Despite being born into circumstances that many would have found impossible to overcome, Jamie Foxx did not just survive, he thrived. Jamie Foxx's journey from small-town Texas to global stardom is nothing short of extraordinary. It was not an easy or straight path, but it was a path carved from resilience, determination, and an unshakable belief in his dreams. From the very start, Jamie knew that his life wasn't going to follow the conventional route. Growing up in Terrell, Texas, he had a tough childhood, abandoned by his parents, raised by a grandmother who instilled in him a sense of discipline, faith, and music. Yet, even in the face of hardship, Jamie had one thing that would push him forward: his dream. By the time Jamie was a teenager, the world around him was changing rapidly. The civil rights movement had reshaped America, and though the changes were profound, Jamie's hometown was still limited in terms of opportunities for a young black boy. Despite this, Jamie's grandmother made sure he received an education. And, though they didn't have much in terms of material wealth, she made sure he had the things that truly mattered: faith, stability, and a passion for music. The discipline and structure Jamie grew up with would prove essential in the years to come. Music in particular became Jamie's escape. From the time he could walk, his hands were drawn to the piano keys. His grandmother pushed him to master classical pieces, shaping him into a disciplined musician. But Jamie's heart yearned for more. He didn't just want to play music, he wanted to perform, to make people feel something, to take them somewhere through his art. As a child, Jamie would play Bach and Beethoven on the piano, But as a teenager, he started to imagine himself in a different spotlight. He started writing his own music and dreaming of something bigger. By the time he was in high school, Jamie began to get involved in local talent shows where he would sing and perform, capturing the attention of everyone around him. It wasn't just the piano anymore, it was the stage, the connection with the audience, the ability to make them feel something. He wanted to break free from the confines of his small town, to escape the shadows of his past, and to be something bigger than the limitations placed on him by his circumstances. But as much as Jamie loved music, there was something else that pulled at his heart: the desire to make people laugh. Comedy became Jamie's second passion, and though he had always been funny, it wasn't until his teenage years that he started to seriously pursue it. At first, comedy was a defense mechanism. Growing up, he learned early on that laughter was a shield, a way to make people laugh while hiding the loneliness and pain that filled his heart. But as Jamie got older, he began to realize that his gift for making people laugh wasn't just a shield, it was a calling. He didn't just want to entertain, he wanted to take his talent to the next level. In his late teens, Jamie made the bold decision to move to Los Angeles. It wasn't just a desire to escape, it was the dream of every artist who believed that their big break was just around the corner. Jamie knew that the road ahead would be hard, but he also knew that he had no choice but to pursue it. With nothing but a suitcase and his dreams, he left behind everything he knew and headed to the city of opportunity, where the streets were lined with promises of fame, but also with fierce competition. Jamie's early days in Los Angeles were filled with struggle. He didn't have family in the city, and the connections he needed to get ahead were hard to come by. He spent hours at comedy clubs waiting for his chance to perform. He didn't have an agent, didn't have the backing of any major producer. He had only his passion and his belief that he could make it. But Jamie was no stranger to rejection. He faced a constant battle, competing with hundreds of other comedians for the same limited opportunities. Yet every failure made him stronger. Each rejection became fuel for his fire. If anything, it pushed him to work harder, to get better. In those early years, Jamie faced the harsh reality of the entertainment industry. He worked odd jobs, did stand-up comedy in smoky clubs, and took on small roles in TV shows and films. His first big break came when he landed a spot on the groundbreaking sketch comedy show In Living Color in 1991. It wasn't just a lucky break, it was the result of years of relentless work, honing his craft and pushing through every obstacle that came his way. On In Living Color, Jamie was able to show the world that he wasn't just a comedian, but a performer with range and depth. His energetic performances and willingness to take risks made him stand out, and soon, he became one of the most recognizable faces on the show. But while In Living Color gave him national exposure, Jamie was still battling the stereotype of being just a comedian. Hollywood often likes to box people in, and for Jamie, the label of funny man was something he was desperate to shake. He wanted to prove that he was more than just a comic. He wanted to be seen as a serious actor, someone capable of taking on complex roles. It wasn't easy. Despite his success on In Living Color, he found himself struggling to break into the film world. Casting directors saw him as nothing more than a funny guy, and his dream of being recognized as a serious actor seemed distant. But Jamie refused to give up. He knew that to get the roles he wanted, he would have to prove his range, and so he pushed forward. In 1996, he landed his own sitcom, The Jamie Foxx Show, which gave him another platform to showcase his talent. Though the show was a hit, Jamie still felt the sting of being typecast. He yearned for something more. It wasn't until 2004, when he was cast as Ray Charles in the film Ray, that Jamie's true potential was realized. Ray was the turning point in Jamie's career. His portrayal of the legendary musician was nothing short of breathtaking. It wasn't just a performance, it was a transformation. Jamie didn't just play Ray Charles, he became Ray Charles. His dedication to the role was so complete that the lines between actor and character blurred. The world saw Jamie Foxx in a new light. He won the Academy Award for Best Actor, the Golden Globe, and countless other accolades, solidifying his place in Hollywood. But even as he basked in the glow of his success, Jamie never stopped pursuing his dream. He didn't let the accolades define him. He knew that in this industry, success could be fleeting, and the only way to maintain relevance was to keep pushing, keep evolving. After Ray, he took on a variety of roles, proving his versatility in films like Collateral, Django Unchained, and Baby Driver. He also continued his music career, earning a Grammy Award for his hit song Blame It in 2010. Through it all, Jamie never stopped chasing his dream. Even after achieving monumental success, He remained driven by the same hunger that had pushed him to leave Terrell, Texas, and move to Los Angeles all those years ago. The relentless pursuit of his dream had taken him from small-town obscurity to the pinnacle of Hollywood, and it was a pursuit that never slowed down. Jamie Foxx's career is a testament to the power of persistence and belief in oneself. His rise from humble beginnings to global stardom was no accident. It was the result of a man who refused to let anything, not even the harshest setbacks, stop him from achieving his dream. Jamie Foxx's rise to fame was nothing short of meteoric. From his humble beginnings in Terrell, Texas, he defied the odds to become one of Hollywood's most celebrated actors, musicians, and comedians. But with fame came a crushing weight, a weight that Jamie was not fully prepared for. At first, the accolades felt like a reward for all the years of struggle. But as the years passed and the spotlight grew brighter, so did the expectations. It wasn't long before the weight of fame and the pressure to be perfect began to feel unbearable. At the beginning of his career, Jamie had an insatiable hunger to prove himself. He had already defied so much, from his rough upbringing to the obstacles he faced as a comedian trying to break into the entertainment industry. When he landed the role of Ray Charles in Ray, a performance that would earn him an Oscar, it felt like the culmination of everything he had worked for. But the reality of what he had achieved hit him harder than he expected. Suddenly, Jamie wasn't just a talented performer, he was the talented performer. His name was associated with perfection. His work was being praised on the highest stages, and the world expected him to continue that streak. Never faltering, never falling short. For a while, Jamie embraced the pressure. He kept pushing himself, taking on challenging roles and expanding his career into music, where he also found success. But it wasn't long before he began to feel the strain. With each new project, he was expected to outdo himself, to be even better than he had been before. In the entertainment industry, where reinvention is key, maintaining relevance becomes an exhausting battle. Jamie had earned the title of Oscar winner, but he now carried the fear of never being able to replicate that success. In the years following Ray, Jamie's career continued to soar. He starred in films like Django Unchained and Collateral, both of which cemented his place in Hollywood. However, this level of success comes with its own set of challenges. As an actor, Jamie's talent was undisputed, but with that recognition came a demand for perfection. Each role, each performance was dissected and analyzed by critics, fans, and the industry alike. The question wasn't whether Jamie could act, it was whether he could continue to be the best. The weight of that expectation began to take its toll on him. Behind the public persona, the laughter, the applause, the red carpets, Jamie was battling something deeper. There was the pressure to always be on. For Jamie, the world had begun to expect the perfect combination of humor, charisma, and talent. But what people didn't see was the toll this took on him mentally and physically. The constant hustle to maintain his position at the top, the drive to always deliver something better than his last performance, was wearing him down. The relentless pursuit of perfection wasn't just confined to his career. It bled into his personal life as well. In public, Jamie had to maintain an image of success and stability, even as his personal life was often under the microscope. His relationships, his family, and his choices were all scrutinized, leading to a feeling of being trapped in a cycle of constantly trying to live up to the expectations of others. No matter how many successful projects he completed, there was always the looming question: what's next? The public's insatiable demand for more, for bigger, for better, seemed endless. This pressure was further amplified by the weight of his past. Growing up without a stable family, his parents were absent for most of his childhood, had left deep emotional scars. While he had found refuge in music and comedy, the wounds of abandonment never fully healed. As an adult, those same feelings of loneliness and isolation began to resurface. He had succeeded in every area of his career, but at times, he felt empty inside. The idea of perfection, of always appearing as though everything was under control, started to feel like a heavy mask that he could never take off. Behind the smiles, the awards, and the applause, Jamie was grappling with his own personal demons, issues that fame had only intensified. The more Jamie achieved, the more pressure he felt to protect the image he had built. Success, it seemed, demanded the sacrifice of authenticity. He was expected to be everything to everyone: factor, musician, comedian, father, and friend, all while maintaining an image of effortless perfection. This constant balancing act was exhausting, and Jamie began to feel like he was losing touch with who he truly was. As the years went on, the cracks in the facade began to show. The stress of living up to the world's expectations, the emotional toll of dealing with past wounds, and the physical demands of fame started to take their toll. Jamie wasn't just tired, he was depleted. But he still kept going. He pushed himself to continue to deliver, to stay relevant, to keep up the pace. The public, the fans, and even his own team expected nothing less. And then came the wake-up call, something that would change everything. In 2023, while filming a project in Atlanta, Jamie suffered a severe brain hemorrhage. What had once been a body that seemed invincible, a body that had powered through years of acting, music, and relentless touring, now betrayed him. His life, which had once felt like it was on an unstoppable trajectory, hung by a thread. For nearly 3 weeks, Jamie lay in a hospital bed fighting for his life. The man who had made millions laugh, who had sung and danced his way into the hearts of millions, was now silenced. The very thing that had fueled his rise, his unyielding drive, now felt like a burden too heavy to bear. During those weeks in the hospital, Jamie was forced to confront the crushing weight of his fame. In the midst of his recovery, as he pieced together his broken memories, he began to realize that the perfection he had so desperately chased had come at a cost. He had pushed himself to the brink, sacrificing his own well-being for the sake of success. His career, which had been a source of pride, had also become a source of exhaustion, and now, as he lay in the hospital bed, he could no longer ignore the toll it had taken on his body and mind. As he slowly recovered, Jamie had to come to terms with the reality of his situation. The world had expected perfection from him, but what he had learned through his illness was that perfection was an illusion. The pursuit of it had left him isolated, drained, and on the verge of losing everything. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to rest, to step back, and to reassess what truly mattered. It was no longer about being perfect for others. It was about finding peace for himself. This was a turning point for Jamie Foxx. No longer driven by the need to meet others' expectations, he began to prioritize his health, his family, and his peace of mind over the pressures of fame. His body may have betrayed him, but it was also a wake-up call, one that forced him to reevaluate his life. He realized that he had been living for the applause, for the next big role, for the next hit album, and in doing so, he had neglected the one thing that truly mattered: himself. As Jamie recovered, he shared his journey with the world, not as a triumphant return to fame, but as a story of survival. He admitted that the road to recovery wasn't easy, but it was necessary. For the first time in his life, he stopped running and allowed himself to heal. The pressure to be perfect was no longer a burden he was willing to carry. Instead, Jamie chose to live authentically, embracing his scars, his flaws, and his imperfections. Fame, for Jamie, had been both a blessing and a curse. It had brought him accolades, recognition, and wealth, but it had also demanded more than he could give. The pursuit of perfection had nearly cost him his life, and in the aftermath, he learned that true strength lies not in maintaining a flawless image, but in embracing the broken parts of ourselves. As Jamie continues to heal and move forward, he has come to understand that being real, being human, is enough. The pressure to be perfect no longer holds him captive. Instead, he is free to live on his own terms, not as a star, but as a man who has learned to survive the weight of fame and emerge stronger for it. Jamie Foxx's life has never been a smooth, easy journey. From the very beginning, he was marked by a series of challenges that would test his resilience, force him to confront loss, and make him appreciate the love that anchored him through it all. Born in Terrell, Texas, to parents who weren't part of his life, Jamie's first memories were filled with the absence of the people who should have been there. His father left when he was just a child, and his mother was absent for much of his early years. Raised by his grandmother, Estelle, in a modest home, Jamie found love in the things that would eventually help him escape the quiet pain of abandonment: music and humor. His grandmother was a strict but loving woman who made sure Jamie had everything he needed: discipline, faith, and the piano. It was at the piano that Jamie found his first sense of belonging. But even as he excelled musically, he couldn't shake the feeling of loneliness. It wasn't just the absence of his parents that hurt. It was the constant reminder that he wasn't the child anyone had fought to keep. So he turned to humor. Jokes and laughter became his armor, a way to protect himself from the emptiness that often felt too overwhelming. As he grew older, Jamie carried that need for connection with him. He moved to Los Angeles, desperate to make it big. His entry into the world of entertainment was neither glamorous nor quick. There were countless nights in comedy clubs where the laughter came hard and the silence even harder. But Jamie didn't give up. His resilience was unmatched. He honed his craft, got his break on In Living Color, and eventually the world saw him as more than just a comedian. They saw an artist with real depth. The same man who could make an audience roar with laughter could also move them to tears, as he did when he portrayed Ray Charles in the 2004 film Ray. Yet for all the success that came his way, Jamie's life continued to be defined by loss. His career was filled with moments of triumph, but each victory was often accompanied by a personal cost. In 2020, his sister Deandra passed away suddenly, and the blow left Jamie shattered. Deandra had been his rock, his source of unconditional love. To him, she wasn't just a sister. She was the one person who never judged him, the one constant in his life. Losing her was a wound that went deep, and he used his grief to fuel his advocacy for Down syndrome, ensuring her legacy lived on. Then, in 2023, Jamie faced the most frightening challenge of all. His own life was hanging by a thread. A brain hemorrhage struck him unexpectedly, and for nearly 3 weeks, he fought to survive. As he lay in a hospital bed, he could only reflect on how fragile life truly was. The man who had once been unstoppable, filling stages with laughter and music, was now in a battle for his own survival. Yet, even in the face of such fear and uncertainty, Jamie displayed the same resilience that had carried him through all his struggles. His recovery was slow, painful, and uncertain, but he fought. Throughout it all, love was the force that kept him going. His daughters, Karen and Annalise, were his anchor. His love for them was a driving force behind his survival. He wasn't just fighting for his life, he was fighting to be there for them, to show them what it meant to rise above, no matter the circumstances. In moments of pain, he would recall his daughter's love, her voice, and her laughter, and it would give him the strength to take another step, to keep moving forward. Jamie's life, filled with both immense success and deep sorrow, is a testament to the power of resilience. His story is one of never giving up, of rising from the depths of personal loss to find new purpose. He has endured more than many could imagine, yet through it all, he has never allowed himself to be defined by his struggles. Instead, he has chosen to define himself by his love for those he holds dear, his dedication to his craft, and his unyielding strength to persevere, no matter the cost. His journey reminds us all that true greatness isn't about how many accolades you collect. It's about how you rise after every fall.